last video we had a look at single finger chords, which meant that for a chord which appeared in the square above the notation of your music book, for example if it said a C, that you're able to just press the single note C on the left hand part of the keyboard. So if we go in and have a look at the settings on my keyboard, I can go into the menu, I can choose split and fingering, and then in the bottom right you can see fingering type and it says AI fingered. What I'm going to choose on there is go to the first page and choose single finger. And if we come all the way out of there, go back to our main screen, and now you can see that on the left hand side I can use a single finger on the C and that will produce a C chord, and I think we used a G, and I think we used a D minor, and if you remember, the D minor was a D with a little M next to it, and that was in a single finger mode would be D with the black one to the left. And you can see that that's showing a D minor. So what I thought we'd do today is just take it one step further so that you know how the actual chord is formed in its most basic form. Okay, using 3 fingers rather than using 1 finger. So let's just turn off the accompaniment and let's just go to a piano sound, which I've got chosen as CFX Grand. We're still going to use the left hand part of the keyboard, and what we were doing before was just using a C. Okay, and that was how we were forming the chord of C. Now if you have a look at this, a chord is made up of 3 or more notes. So if we look at C and we want to form the chord of C, what we'd have to do is choose the C, miss the D and then choose the E. You can see now that sounds like it's harmonizing. Miss the F and choose the G. And now that's the chord of C. So if we go back to the accompaniment and turn that on, that's a C. Turn that off, that's a C. And that's just in basic mode with a piano. So you can see you've got C, E and G. And that's the chord of C in its first inversion, C. There are other ways that you can do the C chord. So if you notice that we're pressing a C, E and the G, any combination of those notes will produce a C chord. So for example, if I wanted to start with the E first, I could do E, G and C. And it's the same chord. So you've got C, E and G, or you've got E, G and C. Or you could do G, C and E. So we've got 3 different inversions. We've got C, E, G, E, G, C, and we've got G, C, E. So I know that's a little bit more complicated than using just a single finger, but the way that I learned to do these chords was just by remembering the shapes. So if I'm doing a C chord, I remembered that it was going to be the C, the E and the G, and I remember that shape. And then after a little bit of time and a little bit of practicing, depending on where your left hand is on the keyboard, you could choose to do G, C, E, or you could choose to do E, G, C. It's all the same chord, C, C, C. So perhaps it's time just to practice remembering that shape. So we always start on the C for the simplest form. So you've got C, E, G. And then likewise, if we wanted to look at the G chord, it's a similar pattern. So we find the G, which is here or here. So it's a G. And then we do G, miss the A, go to the B, miss the C and go to the D. So you've got G, C, G, B, D. G, B, D. And then likewise with the G chord, you could do a different inversion. So you could do B, D, G, or you could start on the D and do G, B, B. So again, it's like the C where you've got 3 different inversions. You've got G, B, D, B, D, G, or D, G, B. So that's 2 really important chords in the key of C. So you've got you've got C, E, G, which is a chord of C, and then you've got G, B, D, which is a chord of G. And both of those have got 2 other inversions that we could use. and I think that'll be enough for today. So what you need to do is keep practicing C, E, G, E, G, C, G, C, E. That's the 3 different inversions for the chord of C. And then for the chord of G, you've got G, B, D, B, D, G, or D, G, B. The reason that I'm going further down the left is so it doesn't sound too high. And that's how to do 3-fingered chords for the chord of C and for the chord of G. Just finally, just to show you a close-up, you've got the chord of C in its first inversion, in its second inversion, in its third inversion, and then the chord of G in its first inversion, second inversion, third inversion, C, G. Thanks very much for watching. We'll have a look at the D minor chord next time and some different variations on these chords. Thank you all.